Anyone hear me? Hello? Hello, hello, hello. Hey now. Can you hear that? Hello? No one can hear it. Ah, it's getting better and better, this thing, isn't it? Um, uh, it's very, very quiet. So how can I turn it up? Let me turn it up. How's that? Is that getting any better? Uh, 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 uh. Can can you hear it? No voice. You're super quiet, very quiet. No sound at all. Level low. It has no sound, Gavin. The sound way better, perfect, great, better, nice. Finally, there you go. Okay, perfect sound. Yes, such is the fun of the internet, and uh, you always have these technical problems, don't you? Anyway, okay. Well, let me get around to trying to answer some questions. Uh, okay, welcome back. Don't turn the gain up. All right. It's distorting a bit. Yeah, I can see it's distorting a bit. Uh, how's that? Um, drum tuning goes beyond the drum head's intervals, moreover, a concept. Can you elaborate a bit more? Yes, and in fact, um, lower your volume slightly. How's that? Someone was asking me before about tuning, and of course, um, there's quite a lot to it. Someone was asking me before about snare drum tuning and the top head and the bottom head. Okay, so the bottom head on the snare drum, I usually have it pretty tight, sort of timbali tight. It's not really an interval between the bottom head and the top head on the snare drum because the bottom head doesn't really resonate. It's only there to act as a way that you can engage the snares when you're playing. So I've got the the bottom head, the resonant head on pretty tight. The playing side is much lower, of course, and I would probably change that depending on each song or what kind of sound I'm trying to get from the snare drum as I'm playing it. Another person asked me on Facebook, what is the best drum advice you've ever been given? Well, I would say play the trumpet. Now, uh, really, the answer is, uh, when I was young, I went to, there was a load of us young London drummers, and we used to go to the BBC studios to watch a fantastic drummer called Paul Brodie. And, we were saying, hey, we've got all these Billy Cobham licks and Steve Gadd licks and all the rest of it. And I remember him saying to us, guys, just work on your timing and your reading. Don't worry about all these fancy licks. None of them will get you any work. And we all wanted to be professional drummers at the time. And so, that was really good advice, actually, because the thing that's going to get you employed is if you've got good time. And in those days, if you could read, back in those days, it was the sort of end of an era of being able to sight read. It's still a very important part of drumming, and one that I'm really glad that I did. I would say now, work on your timing and work on your sound. Decades ago, you weren't in control of the sound. The drums were just a dull thud in the background. And when you went in a studio, you felt like it was all down to the studio engineer to make you sound good. In actual fact, it's all down to you to make you sound good. Now that I've got my own studio, and many of us have got our own studios, you realize the sound of the drums themselves, the choice of the drum, the tuning, the skins, the way that you hit it is so much more important than really which microphone you're using. So you really have to um, get used to the sound. I can just see a question. Can you explain your overheads? You can see behind me these two beautiful microphones. These are AKG C12s. Now, I found having a studio at home has been amazing for me from a sound point of view. I've improved 1,000,000% because I can experiment. I can try what it sounds like with these overhead mics in various positions. And when they were over the drums in the usual kind of configuration that you quite often see, I got so much cymbals, so much crash cymbal, and very little drum sound. So I started moving the overhead mics further and further back, and they basically rest like behind my ears, like they're an extended version of my ears. So the drums sound much more like what I'm hearing rather than, two mics that are completely high, just picking up cymbals. So for the last, I guess about last 15 years, I've just been having the overheads back and behind me. And that way I get more of a rounded picture of the drums. And really, that's where your mix happens. So if you're getting too much ride bell of the ride cymbal, just play it quieter or get another ride cymbal. Don't think you can fix that many things in a mix. So let me see. Cheating the polygraph is not in 7/8, it's in 4/4 in the beginning. Put a metronome click to it. Okay, let me clear up something because I've seen people talk about the Porcupine Tree song called Cheating the Polygraph, and it is in a very fast 7, the beginning. Some people think that it's a shuffle. So let me see if I can sort of play it on this pad. So it's a pattern of 7 where I'm hitting the bass drum at the start of a 7 and the snare drum at the start of the second 7. And that equidistant bass drum and snare drum starts to feel like it might be in 4/4 or it might be a shuffle. But actually, there's 7 subdivisions in between each note. So let me see if I can do this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tick, 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 da, but, but, but. It's going so fast I can't even count in 7 that quickly. But we often tried to use elements of a rhythmic illusion in Porcupine Tree, and to create a rhythmic illusion, the best way is to understand what the audience are expecting. And when you place a bass drum and a snare drum at equal distance, some people will start to hear that as the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4, even if that's not really what's going on. And that can be a kind of fun, interesting musical trick, if you like, an interesting compositional tool that you could manipulate the audience a little bit. So early on in Porcupine Tree, when I joined the band, we would have writing sessions, and I would quite often say, listen, I've got this crazy rhythm. I wonder what you can write to it. So I would start to play some of these ideas, and sometimes the guys liked it, sometimes they didn't like it. And we would try to write little things around some of the, at least as a starting point to the song. So anyway, Cheating the Polygraph, I don't think there's any of Cheating the Polygraph. I think it goes into 5. Oh, I can't remember. Whatever. Love the new kit. But my question is, are they any rock drummers that inspire you? Yes, lots and lots of rock drummers do. Guys, hard to read this, isn't it? Where do you get overwhelmed with learning tracks if they're tricky, and how do you come up and map the progress? Yeah, of course, I've had to learn a lot of tricky songs in my time, especially with King Crimson. I normally start off by writing out a chart. So I'll have quite a detailed chart, and then just repetitive practice. I've maybe got to practice it 20, 30, 40 times before I stop looking at the chart all the time. I think in the beginning, I start to remember what the chart looks like, sort of not really photographic memory, but at least I remember what the charts look like. And then we play it with the band, and I start to remember more little things about it, and things slowly start to get in my brain. It takes time, I guess. I mean, with a band, with any of the bands I've played with, you don't want to see musicians on stage in a rock band with, charts and music stands at the front of the stage. So I knew that I'd have to learn it well enough that I didn't have a music stand on stage. With Porcupine Tree and Pineapple Thief, quite often we're playing to a computer, and for various reasons. In Porcupine Tree, we played to a computer because we had synchronized films behind the band. And then I realized I could save myself quite a lot of agonizing over the charts, because I could record my voice onto a track on the computer that only went to my ears. The audience didn't hear it. The band would hear my cues. So that would save us quite a lot, actually. I just put things like, count-ins, and then, okay, here comes the verse, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then here comes the chorus, here comes the part in 7/8. Okay, big stop coming up. These are the kind of cues I would record. Some, like, if there's a 64 bar guitar solo, you don't want to count 64 bars. You want to just, play and enjoy it. If you can enjoy a guitar solo, you just want to play. So I don't want to count through it. So maybe I would have a cue that gave me, okay, there's 64 bars. After 32 bars, I would say, okay, we're halfway through. And then I would say, there's 16 bars left, there's 8 bars left. Here comes the end of the guitar solo. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that just saved me having to count 64 bars and just kind of just bash the drums in a way that I could. Gavin, can you explain how you arranged the Pineapple Thief song 3,000 Days? This actually links back to another question someone asked me on Facebook about how do you approach the older material, because of course I joined King Crimson. I wasn't the first drummer in Porcupine Tree. I wasn't the first drummer in Pineapple Thief. So you're in a band where you've got to play older songs from their back catalogue. So what are you going to do? Are you going to learn what the drummer did note for note before? Are you going to do your own thing? Or are you going to just completely rearrange it? It depends. In Pineapple Thief, of course, the guys let me do whatever I like. So when 3,000 Days was suggested as a live track, I just completely just made up a whole new drum part. I'll get Bruce to send me the all the charts. I mean, all the tracks in multi-track form, and I'll turn the drums off, and I'll just imagine that it's a brand new song that someone's presented to me. So what am I going to play on it? And I'll work on it for a few days or a few hours, or however long it takes, until I feel, yeah, I like this. Sometimes I then go back and listen to what the program drums did or the previous drummer did, but I didn't want to be influenced by that straight away. Robert Fripp said to me, just treat every song as if it was new, regardless of when it was written, and don't try to play anything that anyone had played before. I want you to play completely from the start. like a brand new idea. Ted Reed's book, Syncopation, marked a before and after for you. In the future, would you like to see that rhythmic illusions or rhythmic perspective as at the same effect for a musician? Well, thanks. I don't know. I don't really think about it. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Ted Reed Syncopation book, it's of course Ted Reed wrote the book. I wouldn't like to say maybe in the 40s or 50s, maybe even before. It's something that I've worked on so much. The Ted Reed book. It came to me when I had a lesson when I was 17 with a drummer who was in London called Dave Cutler, and maybe you've heard this story before, or there's loads of interviews where I talk about the lesson I had with Dave Cutler in 1980, and it was a turning point in my drumming. And to this day, I have all of the Ted Reed, the 8 famous pages of Syncopation. I actually printed them out and laminated them. I've used them that many times. And it was the first time that I'd been shown a concept. All my drum books and drum lessons before I had that lesson were everything that the guy wanted me to play was written on the page. Now, when I had my lesson reading and interpreting the Syncopation from Ted Reed book, Dave Cutler said to me, right, don't play what's written on the page exactly, because this is written for 4-in-a-bar bass drum and syncopation on the snare drum. He said, I want you to play the syncopation, i.e. the snare drum line. I want you to play that on the bass drum whilst you're playing ting, ting to ting on the ride cymbal and 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. Now, age 17, I couldn't play that at all. I was all over the place. My reading was pretty rough. And also I had to interpret it as swing. So when you see 8th notes written, actually what you're doing is you're applying a triplet. So a note can be the first part of a triplet, or an 8th note off the beat would be the 3rd part of a triplet. So I had to already do something that I wasn't used to. I was looking at some rhythms and playing them in a different way to how they looked. And he said to me, okay, now what I want you to do, I want you to play ting, ting to ting on the ride cymbal, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat, play this melody, or this syncopation, let's call it, on the bass drum, and fill in all the missing triplets with ghost notes on the snare drum. And of course, I couldn't do that at all. And he said, don't come back until you can do it. And so I went home and I studied it for 3 months until I could do it. And that led to, almost a lifetime of enjoyment and work on the syncopation book. And even to this day, I'm still working on various systems that you can apply to the Ted Reed syncopation. And seeing as it looks like we've all got a lot more time on our hands than we normally have, I'll try to make a video playing this fabulous new Sonor drum set, showing you some of these systems that I was taught and some of the systems that I've developed that I like to play. And talking of the drums, because I know I've had a lot of questions about it, this is the new drum set. And let me see if we can see it. Oh, there we go. This is a new drum set that Sonor built. I know it's pronounced Sonor, so you don't have to keep telling me, but in England, we tend to say Sonor, but really it's Sonor drums. Anyway, so as you may have seen from the other video on the Sonor YouTube channel, I went on the configurator and I played around for days and days and days. It's great fun, trying different finishes and you can have different veneers on the inside. Look, if you can see that, yeah, there's a different veneer on the inside, and you can try just endless variations to try to build a drum set. And I said to Thomas, have you got any pictures of Thomas Barth is the artists guy at Sonor Drums. I said, have you got any pictures of someone with the yellow tribal stripe on the drums? And he said, no one's ever built one. So I ordered one, and it's absolutely fantastic. It looks absolutely amazing, and it sounds incredible. This is a birch drum set, mostly in medium shells, and it sounds incredible. So obviously my next thing is I need to get on the drums and make some proper recordings. If I played the drums for you now, it would sound pretty bad because you'd be hearing it through this microphone on the other side of the room. So it would sound pretty bad. Why are you placing your crash cymbals so relatively high up? Doesn't this make ways, especially for faster and more complicated parts, rather long? Well, this is more of a sound choice. The crash cymbals are up quite high because when I come to mix the drums, I don't want the tom mics to be full of crash cymbals. And it's only when you've got a studio and you try to mix your own drums, you start to understand why some drummers, like Simon Phillips, for instance, has the crash cymbals reasonably far from the toms. Now, I've seen a fashion recently of people playing with their crash cymbals really low, angled away from themselves, and very close to the toms. You're going to have a hard time getting a good drum sound with a crash cymbal so close to that tom mic. So this kit may not be the easiest thing in the world to play, but I always choose the sound as the leading edge. If it sounds better, I will do it. Whatever it takes to get a good sound or improve my sound. If it means I've got to move something further away or something higher or something lower, I will do it. I will try to improve my sound as much as I can. Let's see, how to improve without having a drum set available. That's a good question, Wan. There's a few things you can do, of course, mostly pad related. And I do quite a bit of warming up on the pad, various exercises. I can see someone else asking me a question about the app that I wrote with Terry Branham. And actually, I've got a demo of it here. So you're going to be the first people in the world to see the demo of, at the moment, it's called Perfect Tempo and Perfect Time. It won't give you perfect time or perfect tempo, but it's ear training for timing. And so what I've done, this is perfect tempo. So what I've done is I've devised a game, and the game is that it's going to play, a metronome is going to play 4 clicks, and they're going to be perfect. And then the following 4 clicks are either going to slow down, speed up, or carry on perfectly. And you just use your ears to detect what happens. So let's see if we can do this. I don't know if you're going to hear this. Let me turn the volume right up. Okay. So you play the game by pressing play. Now I think you could all hear that was dragging. So you've got 3. You could all hear that was dragging. So you've got 3 buttons: dragging, on time, and rushing. You don't get to hear it twice. That's important, that you develop the speed that you can make decisions. So that's fine. So you press dragging. Okay, second one. Okay, now possibility. All 3, they go down as your ear. Wow, that really sped up, or man, that fill slowed down. You recognize that you've come off the white line, so you turn back and try to get back on the white. You might play, wow, it's a lot faster. You realize, wow, it's a lot faster than we started at. It's better and better. The key to call off us, could they hear if something was, leave me? You just need to really just learn how to listen. Okay. The internet cannot keep going. Okay.